There is a 10-day stretch at the end of July, when a dahlia decides whether it's going to be the plant everyone photographs in September, or the plant that produces a handful of small, tired flowers and quits early. From the outside, nothing dramatic seems to be happening. The plant is tall, green, budding up, maybe showing its first real blooms. But underground and inside those stems, the entire second half of the season is being negotiated this week. Feed it the wrong thing and you get a jungle of leaves with almost no flowers. Water it the wrong way, and the tubers you're counting on for next year quietly rot in the summer heat. Skip one boring 15-minute job and a single August thunderstorm will snap months of growth off at the ground in one night. I'm James Scott, this is Golden Age Gardening, and this is the complete late July dahlia plan, including the one mistake that keeps more dahlias flowerless in August than every pest and disease combined. If this channel has earned a spot in your gardening week, take 2 seconds and tap subscribe, because everything here is matched to the exact days you're living through, not some vague point on a calendar. Need number 1. Change what you're feeding, or prepare for a leaf factory. Here it is first, because it's the mistake I promised you, and the last week of July is precisely when it does its damage. Dahlias are heavy feeders, and through May, June, and early July, a nitrogen-rich fertilizer was exactly right. Nitrogen builds stems, builds leaves, builds the framework of the plant. But a dahlia's job description changes in late July. From here forward, it's supposed to be a flower machine, and nitrogen actively works against that. Keep feeding high nitrogen past this week, and the plant takes the deal you're offering. It grows taller, lusher, greener, and more impressive looking than any dahlia on the street, while producing a fraction of the blooms it should. Gardeners stare at these giant leafy plants in mid-August, see all that health, and cannot understand where the flowers went. The flowers went into foliage, one feeding at a time, and there's a second cost hiding below the soil. Excess nitrogen produces soft, watery tuber growth, and soft tubers store poorly and rot easily over winter. So the same feeding habit that steals your August flowers can also steal next year's plants. The fix is a simple switch, made this week. Move to a fertilizer that is low in nitrogen and higher in phosphorus and potassium. On the package, that's the 3 numbers, and you want the first number to be the smallest, something in the neighborhood of a 5-10-10 or a 10-20-20, or any Bloom formula product. Phosphorus supports the flower production you're about to demand, and potassium builds the strong stems and the firm, healthy tubers that carry the plant into next season. Feed lightly every 3 to 4 weeks from here on, and make your final feeding about a month before your first expected frost, so the plant can wind down naturally. If your dahlias are in genuinely rich soil that got compost in spring, you can feed even less than that. A dahlia will always take more food, but past a certain point it pays you back in leaves, not blooms. Drop your USDA zone and how your dahlias look this week in the comments, because the pace of the rest of this season looks different in Zone 5 Wisconsin than it does in Zone 9 Texas, and those comments genuinely steer what I make next. Need number 2, water deep and low and respect. The tuber, a blooming dahlia in late July heat, is one of the thirstiest plants in the garden, and also one of the easiest to kill with kindness, because the thing keeping it alive is a fleshy tuber that behaves like a potato. Keep that tuber in constantly soggy soil and it rots, silently, while the top of the plant wilts in a way that looks exactly like thirst. The gardener sees the wilt, adds more water, and accelerates the very rot causing the problem. So the routine matters. Deep and infrequent beats shallow and daily, every single time. In most soils that means a long, slow soak 2 or 3 times a week, delivering somewhere around 2 inches of water across the week during real heat, rather than a light sprinkle every evening. Shallow watering wets the top inch, evaporates by noon, and trains the roots to live in the hottest layer of the soil. Deep watering pushes moisture down where the feeder roots around the tuber can drink steadily for days. Sandy soil drains fast and needs the higher end of that range. Heavy clay holds moisture and needs the lower end, sometimes less. Before you water, push a finger a few inches into the soil near the plant. Moist at that depth means walk away. Dry at that depth means soak it properly, and keep the water at ground level. A soaker hose, or a hose trickling at the base, is ideal. Overhead watering soaks the dense flower heads, which then rot from the inside, and it keeps the foliage wet, which is a personal invitation to powdery mildew, the disease we'll deal with in a few minutes. If you water by hand, water in the morning, aim at the soil, and let the leaves stay dry. That one habit removes half your future disease problems before they start. If any of this is landing for you, tap the like button. It costs nothing, and it tells the algorithm to put this in front of another gardener whose dahlias are wilting for the opposite reason they think. Need number 3. Stake this week, because August storms do not send warnings. Every experienced dahlia grower has lived through this exact heartbreak. Months of care, a plant chest high and loaded with buds, and then one thunderstorm with a hard gust of wind. And in the morning, the whole thing is lying flat with the main stem snapped at the base. Dahlia stems are hollow. That's what lets them grow so fast. And it's also what makes a tall, top-heavy plant in full bud one of the most fragile structures in the garden. Every bloom that opens adds weight. Every rain adds more, because those dense petals hold water like sponges. The last week of July is your deadline for support, because the plants are about to gain serious weight and the peak storm season is arriving with them. If you staked at planting time, check those ties this week and add new ones higher up, because the plant has likely grown 2 feet past the last tie. If you didn't stake, do it carefully immediately. Drive a sturdy stake, a 5 or 6 footer for the big varieties, a few inches away from the main stem, angling your entry to avoid stabbing the tuber, and tie the stem loosely with soft twine or strips of cloth in a figure-8 pattern. The figure-8 matters. It lets the stem move a little in the wind, which keeps it strong, without letting it slam against the stake or snap. For a whole row of dahlias, the corral method is faster. Stakes at the corners and along the sides, with twine run around and across at 2 heights, so the plants lean on the strings instead of falling into the path. 15 minutes with twine this week protects everything the rest of this video is trying to build. It's the least glamorous job in the dahlia patch, and quite possibly the most valuable one. Need number 4. Learn the cut that multiplies flowers. Dahlias run on a simple contract. The plant wants to set seed. Every flower you remove, whether it's a spent bloom or a fresh-cut stem for the kitchen table, is a broken promise the plant responds to by producing more flowers. Left alone, a dahlia lets blooms fade, begins ripening seed, and dials production down. Cut regularly, and the same plant will pump out flowers relentlessly until frost. This is why dahlia farmers say the harder you cut, the more you get. The plants that get picked constantly are the ones buried in blooms by September. But there's a detail here that fools people every year, and it's worth getting right. On a dahlia, a spent flower head and a fresh unopened bud can look confusingly similar, both round, both green-backed, both sitting at the end of a stem. The difference is the shape. New buds are rounded and firm, like a button. Spent heads are cone-shaped and pointed, often slightly soft, because the petals have dropped and the seed structure behind them is elongating. Squeeze gently if you're unsure. Firm and round means future flower, leave it. Pointed and squishy means finished, remove it. Gardeners who don't know this end up snipping off their own upcoming blooms while carefully preserving dead heads, and then wonder why the plant seems stuck. When you deadhead or cut for the vase, don't snip just under the flower. Follow the stem down to where it meets a main branch and cut there, just above a pair of leaves. Long cuts like this feel brutal, but they trigger strong new flowering shoots from lower on the plant, and they give you the long stems that make dahlias worth growing in the first place. Cut flowers in the cool of the morning, put them straight into water, and the plant will replace every one of them with interest. Need number 5. Disbud if you want showstoppers. Skip it if you want abundance. Late July brings a choice that separates casual dahlia growing from the kind that wins county fair ribbons. And there's no wrong answer, only a preference. Dahlias produce buds in clusters of 3. One central bud flanked by 2 smaller side buds. Leave all 3, and you get 3 nice, medium flowers on shortish stems. Pinch out the 2 side buds while they're tiny, and the plant pours everything into the central bloom, which opens larger, fuller, on a longer and stronger stem. This is disbudding, and it's the entire secret behind those dinner plate blooms the size of your face. Growers of the giant varieties disbud religiously, sometimes removing side buds down 2 or 3 sets of leaves so a single stem carries one enormous flower. For a landscape display or a cutting garden, many growers skip disbudding entirely and take quantity over size, and their gardens look wonderful for it. My honest suggestion for anyone in their first few dahlia seasons is to disbud a couple of plants, leave the rest natural, and compare in September. You'll know within one season which camp you belong to. Whichever you choose, do it with clean fingers or clean snips, because those soft young tissues are an open door, which brings us straight to the less pleasant residents of a July dahlia patch. Need number 6, patrol, for the 3 pests that love. Late July 3 creatures do most of the damage in an American dahlia patch this time of year, and each one demands a different response, so identification comes before action. Earwigs are the flower wreckers. If your blooms open with ragged chewed petals, especially deep inside the flower, and the leaves show scattered irregular holes. Earwigs are feeding at night and hiding by day in exactly the tight, layered spaces a dahlia bloom provides. The old trap still works better than anything from a bottle. Lay a few short lengths of rolled-up damp newspaper or short pieces of garden hose on the soil near the plants in the evening. Earwigs pile into them at dawn to hide. Each morning, shake the traps out into a bucket of soapy water. A week of that knocks the local population down hard without spraying anything onto flowers that pollinators are visiting. Spider mites are the heat specialists, and a hot, dry late July is their favorite weather on Earth. The signal is a dusty, bronzed, speckled look on the leaves, starting low on the plant, sometimes with fine webbing underneath. By the time webbing is obvious, the colony is huge. Check the undersides of lower leaves weekly with a close look, and at the first sign, blast the undersides with a hard jet of water every couple of days. Mites hate moisture and disruption. Serious outbreaks respond to insecticidal soap or horticultural oil, applied to the leaf undersides in the cool of the evening, never in hot sun, which burns the foliage. Japanese beetles are the daylight vandals, skeletonizing leaves and gnawing open buds through the hottest weeks. Skip the pheromone traps, which famously invite more beetles into your yard than they catch. The most effective method is the least sophisticated. Walk out in early morning while they're sluggish. Hold a container of soapy water under the leaf, and tap them in. They drop straight down when startled, which makes the bucket do most of the work. 10 minutes a few mornings a week during beetle season protects a lot of petals. Need number 7. Get ahead of powdery mildew before August humidity arrives. Every longtime dahlia grower knows the look. Sometime in August, a white dusty coating appears on the lower leaves, like someone shook flour over the plant, and then it climbs. That's powdery mildew, the most common dahlia disease in the country, and while it rarely kills a plant, it weakens it, uglifies it, and shortens the flowering season, right when the flowering should be peaking. The reason I'm raising it in the last week of July is that mildew is far easier to prevent than to cure, and prevention is a July job. Mildew thrives where air sits still and humid around crowded foliage. So open the plants up. Strip the leaves from the bottom 12 inches of each stem this week. Those low leaves contribute little. They're the first infected, and removing them lifts the canopy away from soil splash and lets air move through the base of the plant. If your dahlias are planted tight together, thin a few of the weakest interior stems on each plant for the same reason. Keep watering at the soil line, never over the foliage, and water in the morning so anything that does get damp dries fast. Where mildew shows up every single year regardless, a preventive spray program starting in late July, using a product like potassium bicarbonate, neem, or a sulfur-based fungicide, applied every week or two before symptoms appear, keeps plants clean far more effectively than any rescue attempt after the white dust arrives. Pull off the first affected leaves the moment you spot them and put them in the trash, not the compost, and you'll slow the spread dramatically. Need number 8. Mulch the root zone, but leave the stems. Breathing one quiet job ties all the watering and heat advice together. Dahlia roots run shallow, and in late July sun the top few inches of bare soil swing wildly between baking hot and briefly soaked, which stresses the plant and stalls bloom production. A 2 to 3 inch layer of organic mulch, shredded bark, straw, or shredded leaves, laid over the root zone this week evens all of that out. The soil stays cooler, moisture holds between those deep waterings, and the weeds that compete for both get smothered in the bargain. The single rule that matters: keep the mulch pulled back a few inches from the stems themselves. Mulch piled against a dahlia stalk traps moisture right at the crown, and that's how stem rot starts, invisibly, at ground level, in a plant that looked perfect the week before. Feed the ring, not the center. A donut of mulch, never a volcano. Before you go, here's the whole plan in one pass. Switch your feeding this week to low nitrogen and higher phosphorus and potassium, lightly, every 3 to 4 weeks, ending a month before frost. Water deeply 2 or 3 times a week at the soil line, morning only, and check the soil with your finger before adding more. Stake and tie every tall plant with soft figure-8 ties before the next storm, not after it. Cut and deadhead constantly, taking long stems, and learn the difference between round new buds and pointed spent heads so you're removing the right one. Decide whether you're disbudding for giant blooms or leaving clusters for quantity. Trap earwigs, hose off spider mites, and hand-drop beetles into soapy water in the morning. Strip the lowest foliage and open the plants up before August humidity brings powdery mildew. And mulch the root zone while keeping the stems clear. None of this is difficult. All of it is timing. The gardeners with dahlias buried in blooms come October aren't doing anything exotic. They're doing these ordinary things in this specific week, while the plant is still deciding what kind of season to have. If this gave you even one thing to change out there, hit subscribe and ring the bell, so the next seasonal plan reaches you when the timing is still on your side. And share this with the dahlia grower in your life whose plants are all leaves and no flowers, because you already know exactly why. Then tell me in the comments what zone you're growing in and how many dahlias you've got going this year. Those answers decide what I cover next, and I read every one of them. Take care of those plants, and I'll talk to you soon from Golden Age Gardening.